She's on it.
Nice. She's on it.
Yeah, I labeled all the buttons.
And you got to compliment the intro music too.
Oh. Nice.
See?
Shut up.
Welcome to the Grappling With podcast. Dr. Chris Hardy and William Walker will take a deep dive into topics covering wellness and prevention, performance, recovery, and injury management.
Is yours
Our
on
mission
here?
is to provide the latest science-based information to help you get the most out of your grappling
We're gonna do
journey,
this in
both
Portuguese.
on and off the mats,
Okay.
and help you overcome
Bom
any
dia.
challenges you may be
Bom
grappling
dia.
with. Dr. Hardy is a licensed
dia.
physician and BJJ practitioner, but the contents of the podcast are meant for educational
Did a
purposes
lesson last
only,
night, and I
should not be
forgot it
taken as
all.
medical advice.
Uh-oh.
Please seek out personalized
It's cool
care
that you're
from your own
learning
medical
Portuguese
provider
now.
prior to
Try.
implementing any medical
polka?
treatment
Here's
or
Bill's.
intervention.
Bill is a licensed buffoon. He says things that are a little squirrely. Do not hold these things against his gym mates, his family, Chris Hardy, Harry Hardy, or anybody at his gym.
Welcome, everyone. How you doing, Bill?
Hi, good. I have a black eye. Let's just put it out there.
Yeah, and but before we started rolling, we were talking about learning Portuguese from those little apps.
I did 45 minutes on
What-
Pimsleur. I downloaded
Isn't it like picking up a chick in a foreign country?
The first lesson.
It says you're an American man in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
you want to ask someone the question.
it was good. And then it was like I was picking up a dude.
Well, we're inclusive, right?
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah. So
When in Rome,
yeah. So I have that as well that I'm going to get back on the
Yeah.
horse on.
I'm a motivator.
I like it. Well, I can't have you beating me in Portuguese.
Well, get used to it.
Yeah.
Or in jiu-jitsu.
Orange.
Well, there's
he doesn't
some.
roll with me, so.
Okay, we'll table that for another time. Since Mo's here, I can't really talk that
Yeah.
much
Why
crap.
don't you introduce him and stop being a
Yes,
douchebag?
so we have a special guest, one of my best friends, jiu-jitsu mentor, favorite humans, I think, Mohammed Mustafa, who is a second-degree black belt under Andrew Solheim, our professor.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a really cool story to tell. We're going to get into his background. Then I might even let you ask a couple questions.
Can I kick it off with one question? Please.
Yes.
I know before we started live,
No,
I was
go.
like, are you going to quarterback
well,
the beginning? And you're like, yes. And I said,
It's just
okay.
like me teaching or reffing, not reffing, like me coaching one of our students
Right.
at a competition,
Right.
and you're like 5 feet next to me,
Right.
pretending to take photographs,
Right.
and then start coaching too. So,
So
I
you're
guess
used to it.
Yeah, that's my
Okay,
point.
good.
So go ahead.
So sit down. And I asked this question to a fellow training partner before. So it will be familiar with these two. What are you?
What am I?
What are you?
First of all, that's offensive.
That's only offensive if you want it to be.
But
And I don't want
what
it
does that even mean? What if I ask you that question?
I'd have an answer.
Okay.
Thank you. Because you're a little bit of a chameleon. First of all, let's drop a couple languages that you know. Like 4 or 5?
Yeah, 4.
4.5?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, it's hard to tell what your origins are. You're 23andMe.
Yeah.
You could just throw that out there
Yeah.
along with your social security.
I'm sorry, Mo.
Chris
No,
doesn't
that's
know
okay.
what to do.
No, I knew, I just like,
Let's see
all
how
right.
offensive Bill can be.
That's not offensive. I want him to show his colors.
Yeah. No, that's great. I like it.
Yeah.
You know, nowadays it's such a sometimes a sensitive topic. You can't even ask a person like that. And
Exactly.
I think it's a little too.
Yeah.
But you should probably don't say, what are you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I said that to a beautiful Asian American, and he laughed and told me exactly what he was.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Please continue, Mo.
Yeah, you know, honestly, this is actually the hardest question I think of the podcast because you know, depending on where you're at in the world, people see you differently, right? Based on who you are. But I can tell a little bit about my background and then explain how people see where I'm from based upon my background. So my grandma, my mom's side of the family is Turkish. And my mom is Kurdish. They're Kurdish Turks that migrated to northern Iraq. And my dad is Egyptian. He was born in Egypt, you know, countryside. And he went to Iraq in the late 70s and met my mom early 80s, around there. And then they got married, and I was born in Iraq, right? And then I lived in Iraq till I was about 7, and then I moved to Syria, Damascus, Syria, until I was 11. And then I came to the United States. So in Iraq, you are what your father is. So people are there, they're like, oh, this guy, he's not a Kurd, he's an Arab. So they see me as an outsider.
Okay.
Right? And then, you know, in the United States, people say, oh, it's your biological makeup. It's your mother. It's what, you know, and some people have say that, right? Okay. And some people say, no, it's where you're born. That's where you're from, you know? Sure. So I don't really consider myself Iraqi. I don't consider myself just Iraqi, just Kurdish, just Egyptian, just American. I see myself as a combination of
You're
that.
a legit nomad.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about you. Is like, especially when I tell this story all the time. When Brazilians have heard you speak Portuguese, they say you sound more Brazilian than them.
Yeah.
Because your accent is legit.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing too.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just found a facility with language, you know, because, but you know what? You can ask me in English, like I don't sit down and read a book. I can count on one hand how many books in English I've actually sat down and read, because it was like I went through languages like tuk, 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 you know, one after the other, because I moved from Iraq to Syria. I spoke no Arabic, zero Arabic. And from Kurdish to Arabic, it's like going from Chinese to German. It's a completely different family of a language. It's not like it's just a
Isn't that
dialect.
interesting though? Because so many people in the West think it's like kind of all related.
We hear, and that's the same thing.
Dude, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Sometimes when I hang out with my cousin and we go to Walmart, we really scare the white people. Sometimes and then I call each other. We're like, "What the heck?"
That's hilarious.
I like
amazing.
I'd have to pull some pranks like that.
Yeah,
You're not even saying anything real. It's just like, get the apples.
You ever watch the Borat where he's like on the airplane, the dictator, and he's like talking about the Porsche 911 and stuff, and those other people are like,
It's so good.
Do you like that movie?
It's funny.
What?
Yeah, it kind of gets old after a while, you know.
Yeah. But like when it first came out, it was like silly, funny.
Oh yeah, I liked it for sure.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah,
That's good though. And so you've been in the States since 11, right?
yeah.
Where did you move to when you were 11?
Actually, we flew into New York. I remember seeing the Statue of Liberty. It was Christmas time, and I was just about to turn 11 years old. And then my cousin lived in Nashville, Tennessee, so we went to Nashville, Tennessee. That's where we started.
Yep.
But we only were there for about a month, and we came on a war refugee program, so they paid for our airfare and things like that. And we had to pay it eventually back, and we did. And but then in Nashville, Tennessee, my dad didn't like the vibe there, and he just randomly picked Washington State. And we took a Greyhound and came here, just complete random. Like, let's go to this place.
Did he know of like there's maybe a little bit of a community out here or of people from there, or he was just literally like good?
Yeah, no, he met a guy on the airplane when we flew to the United States who was like, yeah, I'm going to Washington, it's good life. And he's like, okay, that's what we want.
The
good
water
life.
very good.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's how we ended up here.
That is funny.
Awesome. So in locally here though, right? Like in the Everett area? Or?
Yeah. You know, I grew up with my family. You know, we grew up, it was a little bit rough. You know, like I said, we came as war refugees. My dad worked in a bank in Iraq, like made really good money back in the day before the war, you know, the Gulf War. I was born in 88 and 89 is when the Gulf War started.
Right.
Like my family was considered middle class. Like we had cars, we had a nice house, like comfortable lifestyle.
Yep.
My mom, I mean, they spend like a third of their salary a month, right? That's how, like, if I could put a ratio to it.
Yeah.
And then when they came here, like, it was so, like, they went through a lot, you know? You know.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, in Syria, actually,
You're
when we
hitting
lived.
a reset button on their livelihood.
Exactly, yeah. In Syria, when we lived there for 4 years, we actually lived, my dad worked in an apartment building where the stairs go, you know, sometimes it's a broom closet. That was our house. That's where we stayed under. It was like all four of us lined up in a row. And the bathroom was on the outside. So it was a very, like, we went from one like very comfortable lifestyle to like a survival lifestyle. So when they came to the United States, it was like, okay, this is what we could do. I need a break.
Yeah.
That's so, you know, and then, so here we are, you know, and we're making use of this opportunity.
And you've pretty much been in Everett. That's your primary home kind of area, city.
Everett, anywhere between Marysville to Bothell. I've lived everywhere in between. Everett most of my time.
Yeah.
So.
Nice. High school. What'd you do in high school?
Yeah, I went to Mariner High School. I wrestled. So I was actually I like to play soccer back in the day, and
Is that where Otto Olsen was?
yeah, Otto Olsen.
Otto Olsen at
Yeah.
Mariner.
Yeah. We are fortunate. We had Otto Olsen, who was a 3-time All-American.
ADCC veteran.
ADCC veteran, made it on his first tournament all the way to the finals against Marcelo Garcia. Just,
crazy.
That's
ridiculous.
amazing.
Yeah, he's just a talent, just a nature.
That was your coach.
He is our coach, and he's a good coach. He's very modern, but he was still like, he taught people something that some coaches nowadays, might not find as much ease or don't recognize necessarily, which is how to make just a person tough. He wasn't the best athlete, but he was the toughest person on the mat. And I've
heard this before about him, that he is tough as a coffin nail.
Yeah.
And Dan Bush was one of your teammates.
Yeah. Actually, he is 2 years older than me. So when I came in as a freshman, he was a junior, and he was one of the wrestling captains. But Otto's strategy is it's break the guy's neck, then you'll break him.
Okay.
Yeah. So not literally, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah. So it's
There's a
fortunate.
similar drive from you guys that I think carries over, that I see, that toughness, that mental toughness.
Yeah.
Dan, for sure, and you definitely.
Yeah. Well, most wrestlers that compete at a certain level, they just have, because at that point it's the survival of the toughest. The technique at a certain point. I mean, you do and you drill and you do these things, but when a person gets to a certain level of tiredness, then it's the survival of the toughest, and who is really mentally in a better place to be able to take over.
The famous quote, "Fatigue makes cowards."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's every time we roll is me channeling
that
the inner bitch. Just like,
we
don't give up yet.
We'll talk about our experiences with Mo here in a little bit. But I want how was high school adjusting to that?
Yeah, it was good.
States, yeah,
it was good. My parents moved a lot. So one thing that I mean, between 6th grade and freshman year, it was every day. It was almost like 6 times of moving and new school, and you have to make new friends.
Right.
So I was the awkward kid. In Syria, I didn't speak Arabic. I got beat up a lot. I'd go to video arcades, and people would they didn't like me. And I honestly, I know we joke around about this, but I think part of it is just how awkwardly the size of my head is. Like, people are like, I've had it one time, people are like, you. I was like, me? Like, yeah, you come here. Why are you looking at me like that? I was like, dude, I'm minding my own business. And people just kind of like to signal me out, single me out.
Yeah.
And so from an early age, I was like, dude, I got to learn how to defend myself, because people want beef with me. Like,
Right.
I got to be comfortable with who I am and where I'm at, and just at least have a sense of I can at least run if I have to.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So in high school, I joined the wrestling team, and I got bullied. One of my nicknames was Blockhead, from this guy who, later on came, and I gave him a spanking, showed him his place,
Good for you.
An older guy.
Wrestling.
Wrestling. One of the wrestlers there. He was big. He was a lot bigger than me. I was a 152 pounder. He was a 189 pounder, So, yeah, in high school, it was fine. Once I found my place and felt a little more sure of myself, and was able to control let's just say, my instincts a little bit more and be more comfortable with myself, then it was like, okay, now I'm more sure of myself, because I think on a level, that's what we're doing, is we want to be more sure of ourselves, be more sure of our jiu-jitsu, more sure of what we're doing, be more sure of our actions in life. So
absolutely.
So wrestling helped with that. Wrestling was a way where and jiu-jitsu helps with that, where we can channel our focus into what it is that we want and how we feel about ourselves.
So when Chris makes fun of your head size at the gym, does it bring you back to high school, and you just want to wedgie this old man in front of his family?
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. No, I got a lot of respect for Chris, and we joke around like that. And
let me be honest. Mo has grown into his head. He has a proportional head for his body now. I didn't know him long ago.
Can't believe you're saying this.
It's the truth.
It's on record.
Well, because I heard someone say it one time, and I thought it was a funny thing to say. So I didn't really. It's not like I can threaten you on the mats. So I had to have something to try to get him, but it doesn't bother him,
Yeah.
And he messes with me all the
It
time.
only took you to gain like 40 pounds.
Yeah. That's it.
Not bad.
Yeah, at least I distributed it and just go all to my gut, right, Bill?
Right. That's right. Some of us went down that road instead.
Well, it gives you more central buoyancy too.
You know, and really, it really makes it so if I ever fall in the water, I'm like a buoy.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, central buoyancy.
You said it
I
in
just
a really
said,
dumb way though. Central buoyancy.
yeah, the buoyancy is centered right here. Oh my
Nerd
god!
alert.
I was a diver, dude. Come on.
Yeah,
Chris is so
butt
nice
diver.
to take all of your guff, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you. At any rate. Well, I asked that because, and I didn't have I don't think the cultural obstacles of not even, learning English too, right?
Yeah.
When you're coming over here. I mean, I grew up in Europe, my younger days, and then I came over here in junior high. And even though I was still American, that was even a culture shock for me. That's why I asked that question, because I had a rough time in high school. And I had none of I think you had a lot more, the different language and all these things to deal with. That's why I asked the
You
question.
wasn't cross-eyed in high school too, right?
No.
Yeah. So that's one thing you had to deal with.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
that's
Well,
pretty good.
we all have our,
Yeah. Well, I know it wasn't cross-eyed. It was just one eye was going in, not both. But
crazy eye. Yeah. That's all right. I've been called worse. Yeah. So I know there's a story after high school that's kind of interesting, that you and your friend took a trip, right? How long was that after high school?
That was, I'd say, about 2 years. No. Yeah, 2 years.
Okay. Well, then what did you do right after high school for that 2 years?
I stayed in high school for 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah, here's why.
9?
9 years.
that's a big number.
I know. No. It
Look
was
at
4
the
years.
shoulders on this guy.
Yeah. It was 4 years as a student.
Okay.
And then 1 year as a wrestling coach. I got a job as an assistant wrestling coach. And it was really like, it was a kind of a big deal. I was like the youngest staff member. I was 19 teaching
Right.
wrestling in high school, And then I stayed there for, okay, maybe I exaggerated on that night. It was more like 7. And I stayed there for another year or 2 as a security guard. So that's
Yeah,
what I
'cause-
did for work.
But you weren't a student.
No, I wasn't a student, but I was still in that same high school, Mariner High School, for 9 years, and 7 years. Let's just say.
Yeah, because I don't think we was required to have a police officer yet.
No,
Right.
no, but we did have one.
Yeah.
Yeah. There
When
was,
did you
there was some
graduate?
gangs stuff. 2006.
Okay, yeah, it was 02.
Yeah. 2006. So.
I was 88.
Yeah. Yeah. So in high school, we had this friend named Juan, who is Argentinian. And we were on the cross country team along with Matt Zarate, right? And he actually came here on a tourist visa and just stayed. And then one day he was illegally racing his Beamer on the opposite lane and hit a car head on. No one was injured. He just barely had a scratch. The other person had a scratch. So no one was really seriously injured. It could have been serious, but he had to go to jail for that. So he went to jail. And then that day, the immigration officers were making the rounds and they caught him. So they deported him. And he was like, our bro, So we're like, dude, we're going to go see you in Argentina. So that's what started the trip to the
This
South
is what I want to
America.
get into. Yeah. So tell us about this trip.
The beginning of being Mo the Nomad.
Yeah, it was definitely a different trip because nowadays when people travel, depends on who they are and where they're at in terms of their life and if they have kids and age and comfort, things like that. They do it in a certain way, resort, things like that. And there's a place and time for all those things. But the way we were just like, we were in search of something and we didn't know exactly what it was, Matt and I. So what we did is we didn't have a guidebook. We didn't have a cell phone. We didn't have like anything telling us where to go and how to do things.
Because you're like, 20 years old?
Yeah, like 21, 22 maybe. We took some maps. So we took a map of Argentina, a map of Bolivia, and a map of Peru. And so we started our journey in Argentina, visiting our friend. We stayed with him for about 3 weeks. And the trip itself was a whole year for me. It was a 1 year backpacking. We went to, over like 35, 40 different towns and cities and villages in 3 different countries.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So.
That is awesome. And you just glossed over a bunch of stuff, though.
Yeah.
What's the most interesting thing?
Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah. Tell me, like, did you run into, we'll get into how you started jiu-jitsu in a little bit, but
Yeah.
Tell me, what was your most memorable experience down there?
Oh, we did a lot of stuff that's just crazy. Like,
You don't have to get into any of that.
Yeah.
But I mean,
no, it was like in the sense of what? I'll explain. In the sense of, for example, in Bolivia first at that time, there were like no roads. The buses have these big, like almost like monster truck tires on them that go off road, and you're like driving in between cactuses and rocks, and so we stopped a bus in the middle of the desert, and we're like, okay, we need a ride. And we were backpacking. So we didn't stay in hostels and hotels. We just had a tent, sleeping bags, and just like pitch the tent wherever we needed to.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't have room here, but you can go underneath where the luggage is. Okay. So we went underneath where the luggage is, you know, and then the dust was hitting us in the face. It was pretty bad. So
that was business class?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, in Bolivia, we stayed there for 3 months, and it was really nice. And then we got to a point where, like, okay, let's go to Peru. That's the map that we had. But then I looked at Matt, and I said, Matt, dude, let's go to Brazil. They have jiu-jitsu and capoeira. And we Matt wrestled for a year. I wrestled for 4 years in high school. And that martial arts is what called us there. So what we could see on the map, again, we didn't do any research on the computer. It was all on the map. What we could see on the map was a place called Guajara Mirim, which is like right on the border between Bolivia and Brazil. What we didn't know is that we were in the Andes in La Paz, which is the capital of Bolivia. It's 4,000 meters above sea level, which is like, I don't know, like 14,000 feet.
Really high.
Yeah, it's way up there. And we took a bus, dude, from there all the way to the tropics of the border of Bolivia with Brazil. And in the middle of taking that bus, some Indians in Bolivia had taken down a tree and shut down the freeway. And they were demanding money from the government for their tribe. And what they did is they totally suckered us. They're like, hey, you guys can't go this way, but we know a shortcut and we'll let you go through it. And next thing you know, and we have pictures of this, we were in the middle of the forest with machetes chopping down trees. So our bus can be driving. And then we went through like 5 tribes, and each tribe, Indians came out with weapons and were like, give us your money. We need this much money for you to pass. And we had to give money for each 5 of those things.
Man.
Yeah. So it was pretty intense, but we made it.
Yeah.
We made it to the border. So when we got to the border, we went across into Brazil, and Brazil is very different of a country. They speak a different language, Portuguese, right? Matt spoke Spanish more than I did. I spoke a little bit. But dude, we're 2 single guys in our early 20s in the Amazon, where it's like super hot and humid, and we didn't speak the language, and so we did a little bit of we found a place where we stayed in this house, like this mother-in-law unit, and so we stayed there for 3 months, and that's in that town. It's called Porto Velho. We started our jiu-jitsu journey. So,
well, tell me about that.
Yeah.
First day.
So there's a gym, just I assume, in this little town.
Yeah.
And is there a black belt there, or?
Yeah. It was really interesting. So what happened is we looked up in the what do you call that book? Phone book. We looked up in a phone book, jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
And we found a place. So we showed up, and we had long hair. And people in that part of Brazil that have long hair everyone to them is either Argentinian or Paraguayan, from Paraguay. So they so for them to know that we were from the United States, it was like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, why are you here?
Yeah. It's like, even the Brazilians, they say that place doesn't exist because it's so hot, and the infrastructure of that place, it's like almost none.
It's like it's a village.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a city. It's a big city, but like most of the people that go there are by airplane. Yeah. The roads going in and out of that place are like muddy, and it's
interesting.
Yeah. It's very like,
if you're
humid.
there, you're there.
If you're there, you're there. Exactly.
You're not going else.
Yeah. So we got there, and we got to this gym, and we said, hey, we're from the United States, and we had a translator with us because we didn't speak the poor language very well. We're from the United States, and we have a little bit of background in wrestling, and we want to train with you in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And just in what we thought was a very nice, friendly way. Mm-hmm. And this guy named Ivan, he's a black belt. He was a black belt, and he just obviously now he's a good guy, really funny guy. And he's like, oh yeah, you're a wrestler? And the class it was like in the middle of class. Can you imagine walking into a gym in the middle of a class, like, hi, nice to meet you.
Friends.
Yeah, we want to train. Like it was very naive of us. Yeah. And Brazilians take this very seriously, at least in that. He's like, okay, everyone clear the mats. He clears everyone off the mats. And he's like, you're a wrestler? Okay, show me what you got. In front of everybody.
Challenge out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere, dude. It was like, I thought it was in a Bruce Lee movie. I was like, dude, I can't get beat up by this guy because if I do, he's going to say, okay,
Did you have to put the gi on or no?
Yeah, I put a gi on. Yeah, I put a gi on. And actually, I want to take a step back and tell you guys a story. Before we went into Brazil, we got gis in Bolivia because Bolivia in exchange was, we had, I think we had like $10,000 for a year of backpacking at the time. So we wanted to make our money stretch. So we bought gis in Bolivia because we knew it was cheaper. And when we got across the border was so intense because there's diamond and gold smugglers there because there's a lot of diamond and gold. They have like military with like machine guns, like rifles, like at the, like stopping multiple times. And one of the stops, like these intense, like super serious Brazilian dudes, like with big old, the thing about Brazilian cops, they're like in shape, dude. Yeah. They're like, you don't see like any big bellied Brazilian cops, dude. I didn't see any, they're like really in good shape. And they get on the bus and there's like 60 people on the bus. They ask 2 people to come down, Matt and I. Everyone else, they're like, okay, IDs. They see both of us, like you and you off the bus. Like, oh man.
How does this happen?
Yeah. They're like, where's your bag? This one. Where's your bag? This one. We opened it up. And they saw our gis. They're like, jiu-jitsu? We're like, jiu-jitsu. They're like, jiu-jitsu. They give us thumbs up and gave us hugs. They're like, okay, you guys can go.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, dude, it was really cool.
And you guys hadn't even trained at that point.
And we hadn't even trained at that point. Exactly. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So then with Ivan there on the match, I felt like, okay, like for me, wrestling was my life at that moment. You got to understand that. Like, it gave me a sense of like belonging that I hadn't felt because I've done a lot of traveling and I didn't really know like how or who I am. And wrestling gave me that to start with. And jiu-jitsu nowadays gives me that. Like I understand a little more who I am, And so I didn't want to get beat up. I didn't want my style, the thing that I invested in, for somebody just to fool me and school me, in front of a bunch of people. Yeah. So I was like, no. But at the same time, I was like, dude, I can't like just smash the guy if that was the case.
Right.
Because then I'm going to make him look bad and then I won't be welcome in his gym. So I played this game with him where it was like, he can do his thing and I can do my thing. And it was more like a dance, going back and forth. So that way he felt good and I felt good about my style, Yeah. And sure enough, they were like, within even like 2 weeks, the guy gave me a key to the gym. It was like, you can come here anytime and train. Here's a key, and we trained and we did a couple of competitions. I was a white belt, right? I mean, I'm just starting my jiu-jitsu here for the first time.
You came from a very tough style of wrestling.
Yeah.
As in like the culture of the gym that you were at or school.
Yeah. If I'm talking too much, you guys let me know, okay?
That's what you're here for.
Yeah. So.
And they don't want to listen to us.
It's been a little much.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, can we?
No, keep going, dude.
Yeah. No, that's the point.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So then we train for a little bit, like maybe a month, and they're like, hey, there's a competition. You guys want to compete? We're like, yeah, heck yeah. And, you guys know Zarate. I mean, he's like a freaking, like the Tasmanian devil. Yes. He gets going and like, he was way better than the other guys that he competed against, but he lost his matches because he wasn't securing position. I'm talking about that one tournament, the first one.
Yeah.
Then we had another tournament. Where the night before was a no gi, no weight, like no belt, like anyone and everyone can sign up. It was a 16-man bracket. And what happened was all the like tough guys from that place signed up for this, like the coaches, the black belts. There were some purple belts. Yeah. And it was no gi. And I felt like, oh, I got a chance here. Because it's no gi, it's a lot more closer to wrestling, right? Yeah. So I signed up in that tournament as well. And it was a really, really cool experience. Really cool experience. It was probably like, it was a turning point in my jiu-jitsu career,
Is this the tournament that you knocked a guy out?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's hear that.
Yeah. No, yeah. So
He's not listening, don't worry.
Yeah. He's a nice guy. Still friends with him,
The guy that got knocked out on accident.
Yeah. So what happened is I went to so when I was in Brazil, one thing that I think I recommend to a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu athletes, check in with your coach, make sure your coach is okay with this. But if you can train at other gyms to expand your game, I recommend it. And I recognize that from the beginning as a white belt. So I went to other gyms, and I had gone to other gyms, and to them, wrestling was so, at the time in this town, I mean, they probably had never seen a wrestler before.
Right.
The wrestling that I saw there, it was like, I mean, it looked like, I don't even know how to describe it. It was very premature, very basic, premature, like simple, like not appropriate takedowns with head positioning that they just didn't know. They watch a YouTube video and they try to do the same thing.
Yeah. Or a Pride video or something of MMA.
Exactly.
Like, okay.
Yeah. So what I did is I took advantage because I felt really good with my wrestling. I said, hey, I'm going to go to these gyms, learn with them, and show them my wrestling because, I didn't feel like I had anything to hide. Yeah. So I went to this gym, and these guys, like tough guys, black belts, really good in jiu-jitsu. And I showed them all my wrestling, and I showed them my favorite wrestling techniques. Like the slide by, there's this move where you reach under and you slide them by. Yep. There's this way of taking the person down. And I just showed him my strengths, right? Well, this tournament started, and I told this guy I'm going to do this tournament. He didn't say anything. And when I show up, guess what? The first match is that guy. And that guy is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu national black belt adult champion in the medium, in your weight division.
Yeah. Middle.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's tough guy. So I get him first match, and dude, the guy is way better than me. Like if I go up against that guy 100 times, I might win one and he'll win 99.
Right.
At that day, at that moment, that's where I was at. I'm as a white belt. I had been training for, 3 months. Wrap your head around that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm losing 8-0. And by the way, his best friend is the referee. Ridiculous. His best friend is the referee. We're in a school elementary gymnasium.
Sounds fair.
Yeah, I know. We're in a school elementary gymnasium where the mats are literally like
puzzle mats.
Inch. Yeah, like not even an inch, like 3/4 of an inch possibly, like thick, super hard mats. And sure enough, we go out of bounds and I'm losing 8-0. And this thing comes in my head, like it snaps into my head. And it's like, dude, if you don't do anything right now, you're going to lose. And people had been laughing at me because they were like, look, there's a white belt and he's a wrestler. Oh, he's going to get smashed. So I took that a little bit personal, honestly. Like, dude, you can talk about me, but when people started talking about wrestling at the time, people talk about wrestling now, I don't really care that much, right? But at the time, it was such a big deal for me. So I was like, okay. So I really had to show these guys what's up,
right?
So I have a video of this. I'll show it to you guys one of these days. But you can't really tell. You can't lift a guy, throw him up in the air, and slam him and win in jiu-jitsu. That DQ'd, right?
Right.
IBJJF rules. So what I did is I took a shot where the guy swept underhooked me and lifted me up. And as he was lifting me up, I clinched my arms around both of his arms and grabbed the lower part of his spine, kind of like just a little bit above his sacrum.
Yeah.
And then I put my foot behind his ankle and put my shoulder into his neck. And as I hugged him into me, I kicked his foot out and shoved my shoulder down into the mat. And I just took his head in midair, like just as hard as I could. Boom, right on the mat. Yeah. His head bounced. I'd never seen someone's head bounce so hard off the mat.
Oh, no.
Dude, it went doom, 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 almost 3 bounces. And he passed completely cold out.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to do that to win. I was it was not accidental. It was super intentional. It was not accidental at all.
Oh no.
Yeah. And it was because it was I felt like I was cornered. I was like, dude, I got to do everything I can to win, Yeah. And then I was like, I can't show his buddy. His buddy's going to see, he's going to say, stop, not going to give me my point. So I covered his face. That's my first reaction. I slammed him, then I covered his face. And then he gave me 2 for takedown, 4 for mount. So now it's 6-8.
Yeah.
And then I was
just mounted a limp body.
Yeah, I just mounted.
Did you slide under it in Ezekiel and be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if I could have put him into a submission and he would have tapped, I would have, but he was just out. So I was like, there's no point. So I got to show the ref. So I was like, all right. So I point at the ref and I point down and I said, hey, he's sleeping. And he's like, get off. And I got off and then the people came in, this CPR, whatever. And not CPR, but to wake the guy up. Yeah. They give him that stuff that he smells and he starts waking up. And sure enough, he wakes up, dude. He woke up a limp noodle. It was like at that point, I just grabbed his head, doom, and he fell down. Doom, he fell down.
Yeah, he was so out of it.
He was so out of it, and that was the big dog. I knew if I could beat him, that the other guys would not be hard. And sure enough, everyone else was like just a little bit
now
scared.
They're freaked out. Yeah.
They're freaked out. Yeah. So yeah, and I ended up winning, and the news channel was there. They recorded it, and then the next day, both Matt and I were signed up for a gi, and I showed up with a white belt. Dude, people were pissed. They were not happy. Like my first match, the coach saw, and he was there in the night before.
Yeah.
And saw the match. He's like, no way is this guy a blue belt, a white belt, and he's going to go up against my student. He's like, no way. Yeah. He refused for me to compete. Then my coach at the time, Ivan, he was the black belt. He said, come here. And he pulled me over in front of everyone. He's like, come here. Here's your blue belt. You're a blue belt. And he didn't even tie it around me. He just like threw it in my lap. Yeah. And he shucked it over. He's like, okay, he's going to compete with the blue belts. And they signed me up, and I competed with the blue belts. Yeah, so this was all like within 3 months of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know? Yeah. So, but yeah, it was a cool experience.
So you got to knock someone out to get a blue belt?
Yeah. That's the moral of the story. Yeah.
It's funny because that sounds similar to like Tom's last tournament where he entered the absolute no-gi where there was no belts or
as a white belt.
Yeah, as a white belt.
Yeah.
And he wins it against a black belt in the finals. And and then people were like, who is this guy? Okay, that you can look on Smooth Comp, and they're like, he signed up for the white belt gi division.
Yeah, yeah,
so like, I remember there was a couple people that came up and go, what is this?
I was I was coaching him, and we had a 10th Planet guy that was the other coach, right?
Yeah.
And he looked at me and goes, seriously? I was like, no, seriously, he's only been training for 6 months.
The thing about Tom is like he's just like super talented. You know, I had at least the base. You know, he didn't even wrestle. Yeah. That's why like it's so astonishing. You know, like so when I roll with him, I just like to like let him know like, dude, I'm gonna put you in your place. You know, and that's what he needs. You know, he doesn't need somebody to like roll with him and be like, oh, you're so tough and you're gonna beat me. So like I'm just like, dude, like I want you to get tough, but I'm gonna let you know like your place is this and my place is this. You know, and
glad you're able to do that.
Yeah,
for us.
Yeah, you can do it too,
dude. He's I don't want to get injured, man, because I would feel. And he's so nice, dude. He's such a nice guy.
He is.
But anyway, wow. And so, how long did you continue? Did you stay at that gym?
Yeah, I stayed at that gym and stayed in this town for 3 months in the Amazon. And it was, it got to a point where it was like so hot. Zarate one day was like, I'm going to go on a run. It was 12 o'clock in the afternoon. He was gone for 5 minutes, came back like overheated, like just like couldn't even breathe basically. Yeah. And lots of mosquitoes. So I was like ready to be out of that town. So I went to the coast. I took a bus to the coast. So
you continue training there?
Yeah. I had my gi. So whenever I visited, I just, would train with people.
What town did you go to then?
A place called Vitória. Yeah, Vitória. So on the coast.
Did you just kind of jump around to some of these smaller towns and train at all those, or did you ever go to any of the big spots?
Yeah. I went to Rio. And because, that's really, in São Paulo, those are like, in Brazil, those are the best places to train in general, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, with the exception of some top names like Manaus or Felipe Pena and Minas Gerais and things like that. And I've been to those gyms as well. And, but what I noticed is that training at gyms was really beneficial for me. And later on, so the story with Brazil doesn't end there. After leaving Brazil, I get a call from a guy who was from this town where I did this tournament. And he says, hey, I have a opportunity for you. Like, I want you to come and teach at my gym, teach wrestling. And in exchange, I'll give you a place to stay. I'll give you this much money. I'll give you food, whatever, And I was like, okay, good opportunity. So I went and lived in Brazil and I taught wrestling. And I stayed there for 2 years teaching wrestling. And I met this guy. It was kind of interesting how things worked out. This guy is the only Kurdish Iraqi registered in the state of Espírito Santo. He's the only one in Brazil. And he's the owner, at the time, he no longer is, of Brazil's third largest MMA organization. Like, kind of like,
Jungle Fights.
Like Jungle Fights, yeah. His was HCC. And So everybody wanted to get on his good side. And I considered him a cousin, you know? So I went to like 20, 30 different gyms. No one asked like why you're here, what you're doing here. There was one experience that wasn't pleasant at one gym. But overall, people are like, oh, you're Haider's cousin? Oh, come on in. Like they were like very welcoming.
Yeah.
So I got to train with, you know, so many different styles.
They want to
of
be on
people.
that guy's good graces. So if you're connected, they're like, please.
Exactly,
come on.
because he would set up the fights
Yeah.
for, and who would go with who, and when people would fight, and how much to pay. So he was like,
Right.
he was like the Dana White of that, you know,
Yeah.
event. Everybody wanted to be on his good side.
Right.
So
I was curious. So how long did it take you to learn Portuguese after being down there?
yeah, you know, it's really interesting. Like I think Portuguese, I'd been studying Spanish. I studied in high school, and I had such a hard time learning it. But once I learned Portuguese, like it opened the door for the Spanish, you know. But I would say like I started with a basic Portuguese after 3 months. Started talking and expressing like I like this, let's do this, and started picking up on like you know, jiu-jitsu wording, like what's sweeping, what's side control, what's you know, all that stuff within 3 months. And then I just continued, you know, through music, through friendships for people, you know, and just kept going. But I would say within a year I had like a good base with Brazilian with Portuguese. So yeah, within a year.
And then it just developed from there.
Yeah, and then
'Cause
got
you were
married to a
immersed,
Brazilian.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and if you don't mind, I like that story about how you met your wife.
How I met my wife, dude, it's kind of crazy.
It's a funny story,
It's
actually.
a funny story.
Yeah.
So so the trip, this trip, dude, it was really cool because we centered it around nature and food.
Yeah.
Like full moon, we're like, okay, we're gonna have a barbecue, invite a bunch of poor people.
Is this when you're already there, or you already came back? And
No, this was
The first one?
This is the first one.
okay, your
Yeah.
first trip down there, you got this job and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah, this is the first one. So we centered it around that, and so in Brazil there are a few mountains that, and I like, you know, at the time I really liked, and I still do, going on hikes and things like that. It's not common over there, and there's Brazil's third highest climbable mountain. It's about 4,000 meters, which is like 12,000 feet above sea level, and so when I was in the Amazon, completely across the continent, basically, some guy started talking about some festival. And I was like, dude, like, you know, I was like, I don't want to go to a festival. It just sounds ridiculous at the time, right?
Yeah.
This guy looked like a hippie, long beard, blah, 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 shiny eyes. His eyes were shiny. I remember that. Sounded nuts, right? Matt's way nicer than me. Matt's like really looking into people's eyes. Yeah, okay. And I'm
Yeah,
just like,
man.
dude,
That
get out of
sounds
here.
like Matt.
Yeah.
With a big smile. It's like,
Exactly.
Sure, man.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just listening to him. I was like, this is nuts. I take a bus by myself because Matt and I split up. Matt went into the Amazon and like lived with like natives that you can only get to by like airplane.
Yeah.
Like super isolated. They didn't even have Wi-Fi, you know? They didn't even know what electricity is yet.
Right.
So I took with the opposite way and I went to the coast, and I get to the other side of the country, and
So you
then
guys just split?
we split up and
Were
that
you
was
like, in 3 months, let's meet at the red flag in the middle of the Amazon? Or-
No, yeah, that's that. So there's another story
Okay,
related
we'll
to
get
that.
there.
We'll get to that. That one's kind of crazy because it involves alligators and machetes. And so, anyways, but back to this story. So I go across Brazil, and another guy starts talking about this festival. I'm like, dude, festival? Like, it's called the World Rainbow Festival. It sounded like the least thing I wanted to do
Yeah.
at the time,
Yeah.
you know? Anyways, and then I take and go onto this beach town outside of Rio de Janeiro. It's like natives that live on the beach that you can only get to by trail or by boat. Super secluded, awesome place. Basically, people have like a community kitchen, like an open kitchen and a bathroom. You pay like, I don't know, like 10, 20 reals at the time, and you can set up a tent on the beach. Crystal clear waters with like super nice trails and waterfalls behind you, and lots of fruit trees where you're just like, I'd help them reel in the boats, and they would give me fish, and I'd make fish right on the beach right there. It was really cool, man. Such a cool experience, you know? And so anyways, this guy in this secluded spot starts talking third time. I'm like, okay, it's a sign. That's what it is. Duh, wake up, dude. You know, it's a sign. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go check this place out. It's about 8 hours by bus. No problem. And there's this mountain there. That's the benefit. So I'll go check it out. And sure enough, I show up to this town, and it's a really beautiful place, like lots of nice nature. And Brazil has different types of forests, and this forest is like not so deadly because in the Amazon, dude, like where we were at in this town, within like a 1 mile square radius, there was probably like over 100 animals that can just completely take out a human being with like the venom or whatever, And in this forest, it wasn't like that. And basically it was like a bunch of like hippies living in the forest, with like, and dude, I was like, I didn't like to hug people. Just to give you an idea, at this time of my life, I didn't like to hug people. Yeah. I showed up, people were naked, like balls wiggling left and right, like doing like flips and shit. It was pretty gross.
Bill doesn't see the problem.
Yeah.
That sounds like
he's like, this is like Club Med for Bill.
Yeah. And there was like 800 people in the forest at the base of a national park with like hundreds of crystal clear waterfalls. And I get there, they're like, brother, want to give me a hug? I'm like, boom, extend my hand out. Nice to meet you. Like, don't give me a hug, bro.
I'm allergic to sausage, sir.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So it was like completely out of my comfort zone, right? And, but yeah, so we get to this place, and my wife right now, my wife, Lara, she lived in a village that's like the closest village to this place, and they were like, what the heck is going on up on that mountain over there? So she went with her mom, very like small village on population, like I don't know, like 500 people or something. The names it's really funny, they have the names after the family names on the street names, like this 4th Street, this Broadway, they have like, this is Hardy Street, and this is Mustafa Street, anyways. So she went with her mom, and I saw her, and I was just like, wow. I was like she caught my attention, right? And then I was like, hey, who is that girl? And he's like, she's Russian. I was like, oh, I used to date a Russian girl. I got this. So I walked over, and I was like in Russian. I was like, привет, хорошо, что ты делаешь? And then she was like, which was like, hi, how are you?
She doesn't look very Russian.
No, I was.
But you were struck.
I was struck. I didn't care. She was Russision or Brazilian or whatever country.
Holy
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I walked up to her, and she's just
You're just throwing the best Russian game you can.
Dude, I was like giving it all my all, and she just looked at me and shook her head. She didn't even know what the heck I was saying there. I felt so dumb, dude. So I was like, okay. And then anyways, it worked out. That's the important part, right? It worked out. It's funny. Maybe one day you'll ask her, but she was like, yeah, I didn't really feel like he was like Prince Charming when I first saw him or anything. And here we are married, right?
Yeah,
Been married for 5 years, and we have a kid, year 1.5-year-old. And thank God, I feel fortunate, blessed to have her by my side.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So
go ahead.
You had the story about machetes.
Yeah.
And alligators.
Yeah.
And monsters.
Yeah, dude. I mean, dude, you're doing a trip like this, you got to be smart. You know, Brazil, I'll tell you right now, Brazil's 10,000 folds more dangerous than Iraq. I've been to both. I was just in Iraq recently. Brazil, dude, you got to be smart. You can't go like just, walking around. Like people will spot an outsider from a mile away. Yeah. And like crazy stuff. Anyways, we were in Bolivia, and when you travel with someone, it's like you live, and when you backpack with someone, it's like you live really intensely with that person. Yeah. So everything gets amplified like a magnifying glass. Matt's like my brother, dude. Like Matt, I feel like, I believe in reincarnation. So I feel like Matt is like a brother that I've known for a long time. I don't feel like I just get to meet him right now. Right. So we're really good friends. And to this day. And it got to a point where we both felt like, okay, let's take a break. We're in Bolivia in a place called Samaipata, really nice place. And there's a national park. And say, okay, you go over the national park and I go under the national park, and we'll meet on this opposite side in a town called Cochabamba. And he's like, okay. So sure enough, we split up.
That already sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Can I just put that part out there?
Yeah.
Like if Chris was like, here, you go under, I go over. I'm just like, no. I'm following you.
Yeah. So
well, because if you're older, and then all he has to do is run faster than me, and then whatever's chasing, both of us will get me, and he'll be safe.
Yeah,
those old hips, they ain't moving very well.
Actually, I still can run. I can too. No, go ahead.
With those little tiny steps.
Yeah, exactly.
He runs like Mikey Musumeci.
Yeah. A lot of leg movement, not a whole lot of distance covered, right?
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's very Speedy Gonzalez.
What's hilarious is I was actually one of the fastest people on my football team.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it. No, Chris is just an athlete naturally.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Mo's the king of underhand compliments. Believe it or not, you wouldn't know it to look at him. But
Yeah. So, dude, the next day I go and walk in this plaza, and there's this like almost like a group of young, like almost like thugs, but they're not, in a plaza drinking beer. And they look at me, they're like, "Hey, gringo." I was like, because gringo is anyone's a foreigner. I was like, hey, come sit with us, drink some beer. And I was like, okay. I sat down, and anyways, I go, and the way we communicated with family, let them know we're good and still alive, was through, was it MySpace at the time? I don't know, something like that. Facebook, MySpace, one of those things. Yeah. So we'd message and say, hey, we're good, we're in this town. So that way at least our family knew we were good. So I get on one of those LAN houses, because those are common in South America.
You can pay for 20 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. Super convenient. I get a message from Matt. Hey, I've been robbed. I don't have any money. I'm in this town. I was like, oh, sounds really serious.
Yeah.
So I take a bus like right then and there as fast as I could. I think the next one maybe was the day after. Maybe it was the same day. I'm not remembering. And I get there, and he has like this huge wrap around his arm. And he was like with this face, dude, like this beat up, just like down face, And I was like, dude, what happened? And he told me. So he saw a sign that said, hey, children's orphanage, like we need help. So he started walking on this dirt road to go volunteer at a children's orphanage.
Jeez.
Yeah, dude.
He's doing like the nicest thing possible. He's a monster.
Yeah, dude. And then a van pulls up.
Yeah.
And he even described the van. He said it had a Transformer sticker on the back of it. So he got like a good description, and this is not a big town. This is like size of Granite Falls, let's just say.
Yeah.
Not a big town. And 3 guys come out. They grab him with his backpack, and they shuck him down this like drop on like, because there's the road that comes up, and then there's this like
hill.
Yeah. He falls down, rolls all the way down. They go down there. One's got a revolver. Other one's got a machete, and another one's got a crowbar. And the guy with the revolver stick the revolver right between his eyes. Matt says he could see the bullets in it, and says, hey, give me your stuff. And Matt's like, no. And the guy's like, hey, give me your stuff. And I had talked to Matt. I said, dude, look, the most precious thing that we have is our life. If a person comes up to me and says, hey, give me your stuff, and they have a weapon, I'm not going to fight it. Take it. Even if I know if I can mobilize the person. Yeah. But if a person jeopardizes my life or those around me, then I got to do something, But anyways, so Matt says no, and the guy with the crowbar takes a swing at his head. The guy, with as hard as he could, imagine that, trying to whack him in the head. And Matt had done some Wing Chun Kung Fu in Seattle when he was a college student. His reaction, boom, and he throws one up like this, hits him right in the forearm, and completely opens it up. He had like 14 stitches.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was intense. And then he's like, what the heck? He's shocked, right?
Yeah.
He goes into shock, like, what the heck is going on here? Right. And they like take his bag, and we had these little like fanny packs, right? Little hidden fanny packs where we had our passports and cash. We didn't do card. We didn't want to do card. We didn't have checks. It was all in cash, paper cash, because that goes further down there. And he still had that, right? And the guys are running up the hill, and Matt has this thought, dude, that's all my stuff. I got to go get that back.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah. And they're like, they don't realize it, that he's coming after them. And they're like walking, and as they're loading, they have the back open. As they're loading, they hear him running after them. And they start driving off with the back trunk, the van gate open in the back. And Matt dives into the van.
Full Terminator 2.
Full Terminator 2, just ridiculous. Like, dude, I can't believe he didn't get like... Yeah. So they stick a revolver right in his head. They blindfold him, and they tie his legs and his hands. And they tell him, we're going to chop you up and throw you to the alligators. And this is in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
And there's like a lot of alligators. And and they make cocaine in this town, I find out.
Yeah.
So they were like... I think they were like corrupt cops, to be honest with you. Anyways, then they talk among themselves, and they see that bag that he's wearing. They pull it out. They take all of his money, and then they grab him. They decided not to do that. They grabbed him, and they just threw him in the middle of the jungle. He didn't even know where he was at.
Yeah.
In the middle of like nowhere. and they throw his passport at him. And he had to like, he says he found an old guy there that like had to like tell him how to get out of where he was at. So that's where I met him. So after that, you know, we were like, well, dude, we're not going to give up, because I met up with him. And dude, I did have a thought of like revenge, you know, I did. I was like, dude, what the heck? Like, I can't believe this happened. Right. And the cops, you could tell they didn't care.
Right.
They just, I think they were involved in some way.
Is their cousin or something?
Yeah. So, but I was like, dude, let's let it go. Like, let's just go on, and we have our lives, and that's
you almost went John Wick.
Yeah. I was thinking I would, but you know, I'm not military trained, so I don't know any of that weaponry stuff. I just know how to, you know, run and punch people if I had to. Grab on someone, you know. So anyways, that's what happened. So for us to split again, it was a big deal. Yeah. You know, it was a big deal, but we did it, and he was fine.
You still did it.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
And that's so cool. When you came back up to the States, you continued jiu-jitsu then? How did that all, how did you join, link up with Andrew?
Yeah, so I just, you know, at the time I looked up gyms, and I had gone to a few gyms here. And when I arrived to Andrew's, I felt like it was a gym that I could see myself developing in. And I really like Andrew. Really good guy. And he maintains an atmosphere and a mentality. And I realized how tough Andrew is when I came here. I came here and started training with Andrew, and I was like, okay, he's tough. And then I went back to Brazil again, and I trained in Brazil, and so I got my blue belt in Brazil, like I was saying. I got my purple belt with Andrew. And then I went back to Brazil and got my brown belt in Brazil. And then I came back to train with Andrew, and I realized, I was like, dude, he's actually really tough. Like, I know he's tough, but I didn't realize how tough he was until I came back for the second time.
In comparison.
Experience others.
Exactly. Yeah. So I met up Andrew like that. I just was gym hopping, and I, you know, realized that, hey, this is a good place. This is a place that I can develop, because, you know, with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's the whole physical aspect. And I had done MMA. I had done, you know, I've been to a lot of gyms, including Matt Hume's gym down south in Kirkland. I'd gone to Charlie's, and I did a couple of MMA fights. So I had seen what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I do this quote unquote, because I feel like when a person trains Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in an MMA school, it's completely different of a dynamic, you know, unless it's a class strictly for Jiu-Jitsu. And even then there's still some influence from the MMA. That's what I saw, right? I'm not saying this is maybe necessarily 100% true, but I'm just talking about my experience. At Andrew's gym, I felt like I was getting a genuine Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu experience, which is what I was seeking.
Right. And I met you when you were a brown belt.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when I joined as a 45-year-old white belt.
Dude. And look at you now, black belt now.
53, right?
Oh, 53?
Yeah.
Not 75?
No, I know, I look at it, right? I thought you were my friend, man. Yeah, that's funny. Okay. I know. I'm gonna get some work done, I think.
Yeah.
Please do.
Not. But yeah, I mean, I just, you know, one of my I remember after I joined, a couple months after, I watched you compete, and it was just super cool to watch, man. Just seeing how you know, my dad was a college wrestler, and I've been around wrestling. And I watched how you kind of incorporate that. It was pretty amazing. Your takedowns, and then you've been like a really good mentor, beating me up the entire way from white belt to black belt in the best way possible. And I mean that as a compliment. I'm not just saying you're certainly not mean about it. You're one of those people that will roll just above the level of the person, you know, give them some space and stuff. And what's your philosophy on that now that you're a second-degree black belt and, you know, in a teaching role? What would you tell yourself as a white belt? What advice would you give yourself now that you have this perspective? Yeah,
you know, I think that first, like, every person is a person, and every athlete is an athlete, and everyone has their background. So it depends on the person. You know, some people come in with an aggressive type of style. You know, some people come in with like a wrestling background. You know, some people come in with a zero grappling or martial arts background. And what I noticed that is really beneficial is that for each person and each personality, there's the best recipe. You know, there's no set recipe. That's how I see it. For example, you get someone who's a wrestler. They just want to dominate on top. and they want to do that, that's okay. But that can only take them so far in their evolution of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, where if a person is able to get out of their comfort zone in practice and, you know, like a wrestler, for example, someone who's starting to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, if I was to compete, I'm going to play my strengths, right? Like, for example, if I'm a white belt, a wrestler, I don't want to be on top in a tournament. I mean, on bottom, right? I want to be on top and use my strengths. I don't want to be in guard and doing close guard because, but what I do in the gym is the opposite. I want to do that. I want to do my close guard because I want to work on those points. Because at some point, a person has strengths, and when we develop those strengths, at some point we lift those strengths up, and the level of the person almost like multiplies.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, the level of the person almost multiplies, you know? So for me, I wish sometimes I'd done a little more close guard when I first started in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But, you know, and we have this in our gym. Some people are really aggressive, and you got to watch them, you know? Those guys need to learn. You know, the other day I was rolling with Tom, actually, and I was explaining how I see rolling in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu nowadays. And what came to me was, it's like the yin and yang. There's moments where a person needs to roll intensely, toughly. You know, for example, I roll with Bill. Bill's a good athlete. Bill's a black belt. You know, I want to have good rolls with him. You know, I don't want to be passive about my jiu-jitsu. I don't want, you know, I want to keep good progression. I want like good flow to the roll. I don't want to get locked up and intense about it, you know, but at the same time, I don't want to just let him do things and just not make good use of my time because, you know, time is valuable. So, and then at the same time, if I'm rolling with someone else, then I want to be a lot more relaxed. I want to let that person implement their game and allow myself to play with their game and then highlight their weaknesses. For example, if someone's coming at me with flared elbows, I'm going to just arm drag them once, twice, 3 times, and then eventually they're going to notice, and maybe I'll tell them, hey,
Pull them in.
Yeah, there's a pocket there that you're leaving open. So, you know, for me, there's no like set recipe of what I think, what I would tell someone. I think everyone's different and everyone comes from a different background. And, you know, depending on what the person, where the person's at, then we can see what best fits them.
But, you know, if you have a wrestler that's never trained jiu-jitsu, you know, you would encourage them to, hey, why don't you start developing your guard from day one or something like that? You know, start to be comfortable on your back because wrestlers typically don't like to be on their backs.
Yeah, exactly. And some people are not ready to hear that. So there's that factor too. Some people are like, no, that's ridiculous. That's not what I want to do right now. So I got to see how much, if the person is really like, hey, I really want to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What do you have to say? And I feel an openness, then I'll tell them that. But if a person's coming in like, oh, I'm going to show you guys what I know, or, you know, kind
still
of
has the ego
involved, then I lay off a little bit, you know?
I see.
Then I'll just,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Have you something that happens when wrestlers come into jiu-jitsu is they are typically just the nature of the sport of wrestling, and it's a little different than in jiu-jitsu until you get to the competitors, I'd say, is that level of intensity that never stop moving. You're always working to further the position or pin or whatever it is in wrestling. Something that I think is actually a negative is in jiu-jitsu, we will try to almost weed that out a little bit when I don't think we should weed it out. It's just learn to control it a little bit more. But often with wrestlers, we'll be like, hey, calm down.
Yeah.
Which that's a difficult thing to navigate. Is like you don't want a wrestler to lose that, especially if they have any plans on competing.
Yeah.
But how do you navigate that and get a wrestler to keep it's not tenacity, but keep the pace and keep what's been bred into them through the natural part of the sport while still learning the finesse side. It's kind of, I relate it to judo a lot because judo has, on the national level, it's very common to wherever you're from, you have a certain style. So the Japanese, they're all finesse and timing.
Yeah.
Very pretty, not forceful, but very good, obviously.
Yeah.
But then you jump over to Europe, and then you have the Russians, right? Hard.
Yeah.
Aggressive. Just like very hard style. French also actually do that a little bit too, and then Americans are a little bit of both. They go more on the hard style. So how do you merge that? What in your recommendation to get a wrestler to keep that, but start learning the finesse side of it?
Yeah. It's so first, it's an energy that's got to be directed, and the coach is what sets the tone. This is what I see. Because, for example, I train with these guys in the Amazon that are like phenomenal athletes. They're twins. They're judo guys. They're Brazilian national champions in judo and in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and they're black belts, and they're part of GF team. Super tough guys. And what they did is they took their judo base experience and implemented the pace and the toughness of that into drilling, and especially drilling that really develops their cardio, open guard passing, things that they're doing repetitively, because in judo and in wrestling, you're doing a lot of things repetitively.
Right.
Once they hit a certain level of like tiredness of that, and dude, we're talking like an hour of intense drilling. Once they hit a certain level of tiredness of that, they started rolling. They started rolling. So, but that's experienced at an experienced level. What we don't want is someone to come in, a wrestler who is like going at that super fast pace where they're not necessarily seeing the full picture of what's available and what's around them. And that's why we ask them to slow it down so they can see more where their pockets are, how they should move forward, where they can attack, what moves they feel comfortable with, So as long as we're able to transmit that to the person, to the athlete, where they could recognize the value of having the toughness, of having a fast pace of doing things, but at the same time recognizing the value of having a pace that allows them first to keep their stamina, because that's important to keep a person's stamina, and then at the same,
wrestlers can come in and have good cardio, but our rounds are way longer.
Yeah.
And it's just so hard to keep that up. So you actually see wrestlers do get tired.
Yeah.
Commonly.
Yeah, exactly.
Different pacing.
Yeah.
We're so jiu-jitsu people, we learn economy of our movement. So while they're burning for 3 minutes straight, we're just kind of waiting for them to start breathing heavy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point, because wrestling rounds are shorter, more intense. I mean, in high school, you do, I don't know how it is now. It was 3 2-minute rounds. And you get breaks, right? In between rounds, you get a little reset there. And in jiu-jitsu, I mean, it's totally different. So, the thing that I see that's a good balance with this is recognizing when to move like a wrestler in a round, and recognizing when to move like a little bit slower. I won't say a jiu-jitsu practitioner, because jiu-jitsu practitioners move fast as well.
Especially when you get to that competition kind of practitioner.
Exactly. One thing that I noticed is that, the first, you talk about competition, the first, 30 seconds, I tell myself, I'm just going to take away his game. I'm not trying to score. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just taking away his game. He's going to pull guard. I'm going to keep a good base. He's going to try to take me down. I'm going to defend. The first 30 seconds, I do that, or the first minute, especially against a good athlete. And what that does is it allows me to first have more fuel in my tank, and it allows me to put that, like those butterflies of competition down,
that initial angst.
That initial angst, yeah. So,
and if they are super athletic, then they're a sports car, so they're going to be burning. You're going to see their A game right away.
Exactly.
And know, okay, this guy wants to pull De La Hiva, or he's got foot sweeps or something like that. Yeah. So it's a thing that I think with, back to the topic of like knowing how to work and keep that, tenacity that a person, because I think it's important, in jiu-jitsu to have that, but there's a time and a place for it, I don't think it needs to happen all the time. I think there's a way where we can find a balance of how to move, at what pace we move, depending on what position, from what position to what position. So,
well, it's interesting, especially coming up in mine, especially my white belt, blue belt, even purple belt, rolling with Mo, I would gas almost every time. And what the biggest thing he taught me, a bunch of things, but is that energy management. It's like, look, this is the time I want you to rest. This is the time you need to go. use this opportunity, this positional control position, to get your breath and keep going. And man, I can tell you, it's helped immensely. Even though, I mean, I'm certainly not getting younger, but I can tell you, my rolls are, I'm getting through the entire roll with good energy, you know. And that took a long time for me.
Yeah. The Brazilians are really sneaky with this, dude.
Yeah.
And like, you got to watch them, because even the resetting, you know, you've competed at a high level, you know, you've competed too.
Yeah.
You got to be really smart, because sometimes even they take every inch that they can. So they work and they know when to conserve energy. I think that's one of the most important things for someone who's going to compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, especially in a tournament. You know, if it's one-on-one and you're going on like a super fight or whatever, that's one thing, right? You're doing a 10-minute, 5-minute, whatever rounds. But if you're in a tournament, the way I roll in a tournament and the way I roll for one of these is a little bit different. You know, in a tournament, you got to know when to conserve and where to conserve, you know? So...
Interesting.
Yeah, they're pretty sneaky about this. They have it, you know, the Brazilian athletes there.
Yeah, that strategy really comes into play at that
point. Yeah. I mean, not even just Brazilian athletes, the athletes that are at the high level. You know, that's a better way of saying it.
Right.
Well, speaking of that, you had a pretty big match with a high-level guy a few years ago.
Yeah.
His name was Keenan Cornelius.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because...
wasn't there a meme?
It wasn't a meme. But,
there was something like that.
Unless I didn't see it. But it was fascinating because it came up on his podcast. I don't know if did I ever send that to you?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
So what do you think about that? Now, I'll preface what they said. And that was they mentioned this guy in Seattle that was one of the strongest people that Keenan's ever gone against. And he was confused at first because you're not thick like a bodybuilder. You know, it's funny when we see these real beefy guys come in that are just yoked up. They never feel as strong as they look.
Yeah.
Ever. It's just, I mean, sometimes you might get someone like, you know, that is big and strong and
Casey.
You can feel it. Yeah, but Casey's not even like crazy big.
No, but you know what I'm saying, though.
Yeah, he's very strong.
Like Mo is deceptively freaking strong.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how I was like, yeah, that guy is just, he had incredible grips. It was insane. I'll try to find the episode on the Map Room podcast and put it in the description. But out of that, they thought that you were being a cocky Mr. Cockerson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's clear the air.
Yeah.
Were you being a cocky McCockerson? Or this is how I interpreted it, because he put you in lapel guard.
Yeah.
You got 2 points. You got a takedown. And then it was a very scrambly and stuff like that. And he ended up getting you in lapel guard. And he kept going for, I think, a lapel arm bar.
Yep.
And you were defending it nicely, but it would be like, it was very scrambly.
Yeah.
You guys just were like rolling over and blah, blah, blah. You kept ending up on top though.
Yeah.
And there was a moment after a couple attempts where you kind of look at Andrew and you're just kind of like, you have like a little smile on your face and you're kind of like shaking your head a little bit. Now I took that as that's Mo just being like, this is awesome. Like, this is wild.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy.
I was there for it.
They took it as you were saying, he ain't catching me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not today, Junior.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah. You know, I was addressing the move because here's what happened. So like you said, he went to the lapel guard and I actually learned a lot from that because up until then I hadn't really rolled with someone who did lapel guard. So when he did the lapel guard, you can watch the video. I turned around, I started going for his ankle and that gave him my back. So he took my back and I defended my back and he went to the arm bar. And my other arm, for some reason, I couldn't get it to defend this arm. So with one arm, I was holding him from extending my arm. And people were yelling, oh, he's going to get it. He's going to get it. He's going to get it. And I was so sure that he was not going to get the arm bar. And he didn't get the arm bar. He caught me in a triangle. You know?
That's good because in the day class, I've been preaching that any failed arm bars, there's triangles, failed triangles, there's arm bars.
Yeah, exactly. So that was it. But no, it was, I mean, Keenan's a solid guy, right?
Yeah,
to compete with him at that level, it was like really nice because it opened my eyes to that level of competition. You know?
Yeah, so valuable to be able to feel. I mean, literally one of the best American jiu-jitsu practitioners.
Oh, for
ever.
sure.
Yeah.
I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Last time.
It was Seattle Open.
Yeah, last time
Seattle
my
Open.
BJJ was up
Yeah.
here.
It was the finals, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought it was cool because they didn't know your name. They just said some guy in Seattle, and then they talked about the situation. And Hinger, being a boner biter, was thinking that Andrew was being cocky too, and it was like,
Yeah.
come on, guys.
They're not used to it. They thought they were going to come in and I mean,
Right.
I respect them.
Yeah, of
Nothing
course.
against them, you know.
course.
They were not used to it, and but no, maybe it did come across as cocky, you know. But I was just saying he's not going to extend my arm. I was telling
okay.
Andrew, and I was telling myself.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know. And so, but yeah, I think next time, you know, I'll keep
Yeah.
it to myself.
But anybody that knows you, you know, you're like a most humble person.
You'll
so.
be more prepared for the lapel as well.
Well, especially you've dipped your heel into the dark arts very
Yes.
deeply.
Yes, I've been teabagging that lapel guard,
I know.
and
It's frustrating. Well, especially when you get it, I'm like, and I just curse internally. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, here comes the sweep. All right.
well, the funny thing is, I don't play it actually very often in the gym.
Only when you get in trouble.
Typically, if I'm scared,
Yep.
Yeah.
shout out to Ataich. And then I think I pulled into it.
Yeah. Yeah, you sure did.
Or like with Mo, we're trying to get him to where he can play it, but also defend it. So
Yeah.
we've been playing it a lot actually for the last couple months.
Yeah.
Just to know if we ever run across that you know know what to do.
Yeah, it's such a nasty guard. You got to be like, you know, nasty in the sense that if you have a game like mine, and like my game, I consider it's based upon like creating scrambles, right? So I like to take advantage of that, but it takes away completely my movement, and, you know, scrambles. But I'm feeling a lot more comfortable being in it. You know,
That's what Andrew and I have talked about a lot. Is it is really good against the athletic type because it's going to slow them down. And if you have a very explosive style, you can't. If they get one grip, you have to address it, either unravel it or understand where the tension is.
yeah.
And address it and then go.
What was interesting, you last year at Brown Belt against that guy with the capoeira background, the guy that I went against too in another tournament.
That went on the reset.
Yep.
little
Exactly.
extra.
Yeah.
Well, that was
Nice guy. Dos Santos is his last name.
Super
Very
nice
cool.
guy,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a little dirty pool, and I should have known better.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
my own fault. But my point is, he's very mobile, really kind of athletic in his movement, and you tied him up in that lapel, and he didn't really have an answer for that.
Right.
So it was kind of interesting.
And that was the same at Worlds too. Every
Yep.
single time I was able to, I think on two different guys, I was able to get into it, and that you just cannot explode out of it.
No.
Yeah. So that's why once you get comfortable in it, though,
Yeah.
okay, I'm comfortable here. I know what I need to do. It kind of simplifies it.
Yeah.
It's not so like, what the heck?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. It's like the lasso in a way, right?
It really, yeah.
So-
You just try exploding out of a lasso, and it's like,
Well,
it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
What, right now, I mean, you got your second degree last year, right? What are you working on right now?
With my jujitsu.
Yeah, yeah.
So Bill here actually got me into the squid guard.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a good addition to the arsenal, you know. And one thing that I'm working on that I think is really important for me is a mentality in jiu-jitsu of how I train is how I'm going to compete, but finding a balance to make sure that when I'm training with someone that it's benefiting me to what I think is the maximum to me and to the other. So I'm not completely like trying to like shut people down and, you know, like this is that, you know, like, because ultimately, you know, you guys know you're black belts, like part of our job is to lift people in the gym, to lift people, to make sure like we're like almost like the guardians in the gym. That's I think any black belt is like the guardian in the gym, because it's our job to help make sure that people are really recognizing the value of the art, you know, that they're taking advantage of the time of being on the mats, you know. So with that is, I feel like there's a mentality in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that a person can arrive to that is just so fine and so on point, that is, you know, it's serious, it's playful, it means business, but at the same time it's beneficial, You know, it's not injury prone. It's, you know, so that's what I'm working on, is to have that mentality and to train and to recognize, you know, the importance of that. So,
Well, it's helped all of us. I can tell just from rolling with you over the years. I mean, I can tell you it's immensely helped me. And I'm sure most people in the academy can, and that's what I'm trying to, like you said, it's what I'm trying to do for people too.
yeah.
So it's a really, really beneficial, I think. What other comments do you have for Mo?
I want to know what your favorite submission is.
I know what it is.
I think
Can
I
I
know
can
it
I
too.
guess?
You can guess.
I think it's Bravo choke from Neon Belly.
Ooh, close.
That's just the one he hits the most.
Oh, okay, may not be your favorite.
Idiots like us.
Okay.
What do you think?
I was going to guess the same one.
Were you?
I was,
Yeah.
because that's the one I have to defend for
Yeah.
5 minutes every round.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's hard to say. The one that I think I get the most, I think, is an armbar, but I haven't gotten it in a long time because in November I fell and hit my tailbone and it's been bruised. So I haven't like,
You literally
Comfortable.
armbarred me on Saturday.
did I? Okay. All right. Well,
A day ago.
yeah. Anyway, so I haven't been going for it as much, but I like the loop choke.
I should have known that.
Yeah.
Mo used to get me, I think, like 3 or 4 times a roll.
Yeah. And another one that I like, which is dirty, is when I grab like in side control someone's wrist lock with my face.
Yep.
Or with my,
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Or with my body.
With their frame, and then
Yeah.
you can just.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of dirty, right? And it's kind of silly to think about it.
Beautiful is what it is.
Yeah.
And thank you for teaching my wife that, by the way.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, because she utilizes that.
There was
Yeah.
a fun story of a fella that just started last week. Very nice man. And he rolled with one of the day classers at the Saturday morning class.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh yeah, I have rolled with Bill there. He did some weird thing to my wrist on my first day.
Bill-
and it was
Bill wrist locks day one white
Oh
belts.
my God, that's crazy.
I did.
You know, that's an interesting thing to talk about because like there's such different mentalities, right? From gym to gym.
Yeah.
I don't think that's wrong, Bill. I really don't.
Thank you.
You know, but at the same time,
I think he's a monster.
yeah. At the same time, I don't think it applies to all the positions. For example, you know, I went to a gym one time and literally 90% of the students, and there might be like 30 students, were white belts and 10% were color belts, and there were 2 black belts. And the coach was teaching knee bars. Knee bars. And then who do I get? I get a 390-pound guy on top of my thigh right here, learning how to knee bar, dude. It was like I'd never been so uncomfortable, like drilling or doing something in a gym. It was like ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's something, you know. But in this case, I think it's okay, you know. And when I like to implement knee bars is when a person starts getting to be like mid-level purple belt.
Exactly.
You know, that's when I like to go with knee bars.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the wrist lock thing is, I did it also. There was this beefy wrestler that came in. Nice guy. Just last week also, I wrist locked him as well.
yeah.
But I just feel like if wrist locks are like, the higher skilled you get, the more like obviously difficult it is. And like, it's like, it feels very legit. On
Yeah.
beginners, I like to do it because it kind of shows them how vulnerable they are.
Yeah.
Like I can like just pin them and like they could be like, "Oh, you're just so strong."
Yeah.
You cannot blame me being strong when I wrist lock you.
No, but you're a sociopath.
They don't know me that well yet,
I'm just saying, dude.
and I haven't pretended to be deaf to them.
No, my gosh.
Although I should do that if I wrist
Well,
lock
now,
them.
Yeah.
you know, Carrie. Now Carrie has that reputation now.
Good.
Yeah.
There needs to be a couple
Of you.
psychos that's fresh out of prison. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's how we got his black eye.
Yeah.
For sure.
Someone tapped like that.
So you have a question for Mo?
Oh, I just got a couple. What's your worst injury that you actually ever had?
Oh, that's cool. Dude, in Brazil, I was training at this gym, really cool gym. Dude, this gym was in the favelas, shanty towns. And like I had a motorcycle and I would drive in it, and they knew I trained there or else they wouldn't allow me. Anyways, I went in there and I was rolling with this big guy. and I fell on my hand, and I just felt like heat. I didn't feel any pain. I just felt heat out of my hand, and it got really, 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 really hot. And then maybe after the adrenaline had gone down, I started feeling pain, and I broke my hand right up here.
Yeah.
Broke my hand, and
Metacarpal.
yeah. Is that what it is?
I'm shocked, actually. That's exactly what it is.
And I mean, I'm lucky, knock on wood, I haven't been that like injured at all. And I broke my hand, and I was like, dude, I felt kind of useless because I was living in Brazil mostly for Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I was training 3 times a day, you know, taking like ice baths to be able to recover, things like that.
Yeah.
And so I called a friend of mine there, dude, there's this plant in the Amazon that's called apui, and it's a tree, it's a vine that goes from the top and comes down to the soil, and from the soil it grows its roots. But it's such a powerful tree that when it comes down a tree, and at some point it devours that tree. Like it eats it. It goes all around it, and it hugs that, and it becomes the tree. Anyways, it's a tree that the Indians in the Amazon use for any type of fracture. And they take a blade and like take the sap out of it and put it on there. So within 6 weeks of that, my hand was completely healed.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was cool.
Well, you ship some of that up here.
Yeah, dude. That's a good idea.
Right. I'll snort some of that right to the face. Put a little bit of that on my French toast.
He needs a suppository. That's how he likes to take his meds, just so you know.
I thought that was a HIPAA violation right there. You're not supposed to tell
I thought that was
people.
general knowledge.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Gosh.
Dang it.
You don't tell people what you put in my butt.
Oh, damn.
Only Olivia can do that.
Boy, we're getting God, this went off the rails already. Next question.
Pervert. So, do you have a most memorable competition match, or just even a role that like really stuck out?
No, honestly.
Take away the guy that you.
Oh, I
almost
have
killed
one.
at white belt.
Your fight to win one was super cool.
Oh yeah, that was a cool one.
Yeah.
I like the venue.
Yeah.
Seth does a really good job with that. That was a cool fight. Yeah.
Well, we were in the stands, and the black belts that knew that guy were like, "Oh, this guy's gonna handle this." You know, basically talking crap about you.
Yeah.
And then you're like, "Whoop, knee bar."
Yeah. No, that day, like I felt, you know, thanks to a lot of work that Chris did with me with like strength and conditioning. Because, dude, nowadays, like as an athlete in jiu-jitsu, I mean, it's very few cases, but you got to be doing something with strength and conditioning. It doesn't need to be a lot. You know, it's not my strong topic to talk about. I'm sure Chris knows a lot more, but you got to be doing something. Let's just put it that way. And that day, I just felt on. You know, I felt on, and I was like, I'm gonna play my game. I was able to create pockets and move through those pockets because that's what we do, right? With any grip and things like that, we create windows, pockets. Then we want to move and work through that. So that was a cool venue where they gave me like $1,500 for that.
Yeah.
So
All in.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just cool. That's such a good experience for me to watch. So that was cool.
Do you plan on competing more because you did have a kid and
Yeah.
bought
Absolutely.
a house and all that fun life stuff?
Yeah.
Business.
But you kind of have a reputation in the Washington area. You're known as being a one of the top black belts in our state.
Really? I had no idea. I don't think of myself that way.
When I go to gyms, if it's like a seasoned person, they're
Bill's a slut. So Bill goes to, we have to check him for all kinds of infection. Bill goes to gyms. So let me tell you, all over the place.
yes, I am a prostitute.
Yes.
And you know, people are like, oh, Cascade, is that? Either they'll say, is that a red-haired guy up there? And yep, that's the one. And then they'll say, there's a guy named Mo up there, and they'll proceed to say that you beat the shit out of him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
I say that's my friend.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, my favorite people to go against are the cocky ones. Those are my favorite, and I do really good against those guys. I don't I like rolling with nice people, But I'm like, okay, nice people, cool, you know, like then you roll with them nicely, you know, and then you go nice to nice. But I think part of like being bullied in Syria, I got beat up a lot. I broke teeth, I cracked my skull, you know, all these kind of crazy things. So the people that are bullies, I really like to roll with. And one time I rolled with this guy, I don't want to mention his name. He's from Canada. He's a brown belt, and it was one of the Seattle Opens, and he's like super cocky, like super cocky and like super bully. Dude, I just went like Neanderthal on him. Like just grabbed him and mount and like put my forehead like in his temple and just like squeezed the life out of him.
The
he just,
Syrian Mo came out.
Yeah, exactly. He just went like limp. He just basically let me tap him out at that point. He gave me his arm and just, yeah. So, what was your question again?
I just saw red in your eyes, and I was just letting you go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was.
That you.
I think he was asking if you were going to compete more.
Oh yeah,
for sure. I'd like to. Yeah. Start out, you know, in a way that, I'm training for that.
Yeah.
You know. And,
What's funny is the local tournament we did like last March.
Yeah.
Andrew and I are watching Mo compete, and he's like being super nice and like just nice and methodical. And Andrew goes, "He's never that nice to us in the gym."
Well, you're trying a little different game plan on that.
It
right?
was.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's good to, you know,
it's
like,
just funny.
Yeah, I see the value of playing my strengths, but I also at the same time, you know, if I'm feeling really comfortable with someone, you know, I think there's different levels of mentalities that need to be applied at different moments when it's in practice, and at different moments when it's visiting a gym, and it's at different moments in competitions, you know, like if I'm in a tournament and I know like in this tournament, there wasn't that many guys, you know, I had 2 matches, right? I knew that it was going to be okay. I was able to feel a little more comfortable and feel where I'm at, you know, but if it had been like a high level IBJJF tournament, it's like, you know, more on the conservative, do your best game, stay focused kind of mentality, you know. And then at gyms, it's different. You know, I had a coach in Brazil. His name was Skull Caveira, and he's a Carlson Gracie guy, dude. Super aggressive. I mean, there was one time when we were in a tournament, and he got so mad at the referee, he yells across the gym, "Break his arm! Break his arm!"
And the Just Bleed guy from
dude,
but in Brazil.
Yeah, dude, it's intense. And you know, there's this culture in Brazilian jiu-jitsu that in Brazil that you got to be like, it's very, very like almost like political, you know. And I mean, there's one story I want to share with you guys that was pretty serious. Like I almost got beat up by like Rodolfo Vieira and stuff. Yeah, like. So I was kind of dumb. I didn't know. But anyways, I was a blue belt, and I was competing at Worlds in the Pyramid down in San Diego, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was like right in the beginning of my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu journey. I had 78 guys in my bracket. It was a big blue belt bracket. Yeah. And Miriam up here said, "Hey, you know, go." Because I was like, "Hey, I'm going to get there early, have a day or two to train, get ready." And she's like, "Go to this gym. It's a GFT team, GFT. Right? And, you know, they'll receive you well. You could tell them that you know me. Julia will be there." And I said, "Okay." And I wore a red gi that is from a rival gym for them. And I didn't know. Yeah. It was called Game Fight.
The other red gi period is a bold move.
Yeah.
Can I just put that out there?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I was the only red gi. Dude, they had all come for the world championships, and Rodolfo Vieira was there, and all these like top notch, like Evangelista, like super world champions. And I was a blue belt, and what they did, here's how they trained. There's, you know, when they have a lot of guys on the mat, they said everybody on the wall by rank. Okay, black belts in, brown belts in, and black belts and brown belts are rolling. Okay, then they cycle the black belts out. They bring the purple belts in. Then they cycle the brown belts out and bring the blue belts in. And then, you know, they do it like that because there's not enough room on the mat. Yeah. So many people. And I was there with my red gi and my blue belt. And somebody, one of the black belts, right in the beginning, says, "Hey, I got to go somewhere." I don't know exactly where he was going. He's like, "You go in." I was like, "I go in. I'm a blue belt. The brown belts haven't gone in yet, or the purple belts haven't gone in." I said, "You go in." I said, "Okay." So like I knew right then and there, they were like trying to set a statement. Yeah. And dude, the guy couldn't tap me, couldn't sweep me, a black belt from, I don't know who he was or what he was or whatever, some guy from them. Yeah. But I could feel, you know?
Yeah.
And he got so mad. His ego got so mad. He got up from the roll. He started cussing and yelling and created a scene. Everybody stopped rolling. And he's like, who invited you here? And like got into my face. And Adolfo was like right here. And another guy, like 20 people started walking toward me. And I just like backed up against the wall.
Yeah.
And I was like, guys.
Miriam?
Yeah, exactly. I got scared.
Andrea?
I got legitimately scared. I was like, dude, guys, like, I don't want trouble. I'm just like, I was like, I went in because that black belt who was just here left, told me to go in or I would have not gone in.
Yeah.
And then I competed at the tournament and I took third out of that big bracket. And the guy came, that same guy that caused the whole issue there, and he apologized. He's like, hey, look, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, no problem.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but I felt like I got set up.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of stupidity and like being naive on my part for sure. But at the same time, I felt like I got set up with them. So when going to visit gyms in Brazil, don't wear any logo of another gym.
Yeah.
They take that very seriously.
Did you burn the red gi? Is that gone?
It's gone.
Okay.
Yeah. It has evaporated. I buried it in the Dead
You know,
Sea.
Bill's gonna go buy one.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because there's a popular video out there now of Cyborg Abreu wearing a red gi.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He trains in a red gi,
Yeah. Wow.
but I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't really care. I had a purple gi when I got my purple belt. And then I had the Dragon Ball Z Mr. Satan
Yeah.
mustache.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had one of those.
Savage.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have any other questions.
I don't, man.
I think we're gonna have to do a part 2 at some point.
We're going
'cause
to
there's a
definitely,
lot more
dude.
that
Really?
we wanted to
I
talk
thought this
about.
was your most boring podcast. I was like, dude, I'm like talking. These guys must be really bored.
And that's the
No,
point.
this
No,
is entertaining.
this is a really good one.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't get enough insults, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris,
It's a
he's
problem.
an easy target.
it's true. Oh, it's so true.
You know what I do appreciate? I'll be in the gym. Mo will walk in. He won't even be in the door for 10 seconds, and already he's giving me grief.
Yeah. I only do that with my good, like,
I
close
know,
friends.
and it's out of love.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we want to talk about some of the experiences you've had in the jungle. You have even more stories, even some cool ayahuasca.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
were you willing to come back and talk to us?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
I definitely want to get into it. Otherwise, we'll be here. And
Yeah.
we want to keep.
How long are we out there, Liv?
Hour 40.
Yeah.
It's a good.
It's
length.
a good.
Wow.
length.
a
Yeah.
good length.
That went by fast. I feel like
Yeah.
I've been here for 15 minutes.
Questions for whether it's Mo or anything else, you just hit us up on the YouTube page, on the comments, email us grapplingwithpodcasts@gmail.com.
By the way, there's an amazing comment before I leave on our last episode. Someone thought that you clickbaited them.
Oh yeah, because they really wanted to see you.
They
get
wanted to
slapped.
see me get slapped, and we just staged it. And then
Yeah.
you basically said that no, if I slapped the old man, his spouse would give you, what did you say, a prostate exam with a can of hairspray?
Yeah,
Yeah.
with the spray in.
The spray.
Oh, wow.
So
That's pretty funny.
So good comment. I liked it.
Thank you.
So anyway,
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you'd see that actually.
Jonathan told me. So.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. It's an honor
Yeah.
to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Mo, thank you, my friend.
Look
It's
forward to
always great, man.
More roles. See you guys
Later, folks.
See you later.
later.